Have you noticed how something in you has been changing lately? Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, subtly. Almost like a slow withdrawal from things that used to feel automatic. You don't react the same way anymore. You don't jump into conversations as quickly. You don't rush to fix, explain, or smooth things over like you used to. And at the same time, you might not fully understand why. It can feel confusing. You might look at yourself and think, what's wrong with me? Why am I pulling back? Why don't I have the same energy? Why does everything feel heavier, slower, harder to engage with? And then comes the easy explanation, the one that people often fall back on. Maybe I'm just lazy. Maybe I've lost discipline. Maybe I've just become unmotivated. But what if that's not what's happening at all? What if what you're experiencing isn't a lack of drive, but the result of something deeper, something that has been building over time? Because here's what's easy to miss. There's a big difference between not wanting to do anything and not having the energy left to keep doing everything the way you used to. And when you don't recognize that difference, you start mislabeling your own experience. You start judging yourself for something that actually has a reason. There's a pattern that may have been running in your life for a long time. Being available, being responsive, being the one who shows up, who adapts, who keeps things together. You reply quickly. You help when asked. You adjust your mood to match the situation. You try to keep peace, avoid conflict, maintain connection. And over time, that becomes your default way of existing. But here's the part that often goes unnoticed. Every time you do that, you're using energy. Every time you react immediately instead of pausing. Every time you say yes when you're already tired. Every time you prioritize someone else's needs over your own internal state, you're spending something. And unlike time, you don't always see it passing. Until one day, you feel it. You feel it in your body, heaviness, fatigue, the urge to lie down and do nothing. You feel it in your mind, lack of focus, low motivation, difficulty starting things. You feel it emotionally, irritation, numbness, or just a sense that you're disconnected from everything. And because it doesn't look dramatic, you dismiss it. You call it laziness. But laziness doesn't usually come with exhaustion. It doesn't come with emotional heaviness. It doesn't come with that quiet sense of being drained without knowing why. What you may be experiencing is something else entirely. Something that builds gradually, often without you realizing it, until it reaches a point where your system simply can't keep operating the same way anymore. And that's where the confusion begins, because from the outside, it might look like you've just stopped trying. But from the inside, it feels like you've been trying for too long without enough recovery. There's also another layer to this. You may have been taught, directly or indirectly, that your value comes from how available you are, how quickly you respond, how much you give, how reliable you are for others. So when that starts to change, when you don't feel like showing up the same way anymore, it creates internal conflict. Part of you feels like you need to keep going. Another part of you simply can't. And instead of recognizing that as a signal, you turn it into self-criticism. You push yourself harder. You question your character. You wonder why you can't just get it together. But what if the issue isn't that you're not doing enough? What if the issue is that you've been doing too much for too long without realizing the cost? Because when you're constantly available, emotionally, mentally, socially, you don't always notice how much you're giving away. You don't notice how often you interrupt your own needs, how often you override your own limits, how often you respond out of habit rather than choice. Until eventually, something shifts, and that shift often looks like withdrawal, not because you don't care, but because you can't keep operating the same way anymore. And that's where this matters, because if you misinterpret that shift, you'll try to fix the wrong problem. You'll try to force yourself to be more productive, more responsive, more on, when what you actually need is to understand what's been happening beneath the surface. Because this isn't about laziness, it's about what happens when your energy has been stretched too thin for too long. To understand what's happening to you, you need to look at something most people ignore. Where your energy is actually going. Not your time, not your schedule, your energy. Because you can have time and still feel like you can't do anything with it. You can have a free day and still feel exhausted before you even begin. That's not a time problem. That's an energy problem. And energy doesn't just get used through physical effort. It gets used through thinking, reacting, worrying, engaging, responding, anticipating. Every time you replay a conversation in your head that uses energy. Every time you feel the need to explain yourself, that uses energy. Every time you react emotionally to something that didn't need your reaction, that uses energy. And the important part is this: most of these energy drains don't give anything back. They don't move your life forward. They don't solve anything. They just keep your system active. Over time, this creates a constant state of low-level exhaustion. You may not notice it right away. At first, it just feels like you're a bit more tired than usual, a bit less motivated, a bit more easily overwhelmed, but as it builds, it starts to affect everything. You begin to struggle with things that used to feel simple. You lose interest in things you once enjoyed. You feel mentally foggy, emotionally flat, or unusually irritable, and because there's no obvious event causing it, you assume it must be you. But what's actually happening is accumulation. You've been responding to too much for too long without enough space to recover. And here's where it gets more complicated. When your energy is low, your ability to regulate yourself also drops. That means you're more likely to react impulsively, more likely to say yes when you shouldn't, more likely to engage in things that drain you even further. So the cycle continues. You feel drained, you react more, you lose more energy, you feel even more drained. And somewhere in that cycle, you start losing control over where your energy goes. Instead of choosing what deserves your attention gets pulled toward whatever is loudest, most urgent, or most emotionally charged. And that's exhausting. You may also begin to notice how certain people or situations affect you more than others. Some interactions leave you feeling heavier than before. Some conversations stay in your head for hours. Some dynamics make you feel responsible, even when you shouldn't be. This isn't random. It's a sign that your energy is being pulled into places that don't support you. And the more available you are, the easier it is for that to happen. Because when you're always responsive, always reachable, always willing, there's no filter. Everything gets access. And when everything has access, you have no protection. That's why the shift you're experiencing, this urge to pull back, to respond less, to disengage more, is important. It's not you becoming careless. It's your system trying to rebalance. It's a natural response to overload. But because you're not used to it, it feels uncomfortable. You might feel guilty for not replying right away. You might feel like you're being distant or unkind. You might feel pressure to go back to how you were. But if you ignore this shift, you stay in the same cycle, and the exhaustion doesn't go away. It deepens. So the question isn't whether you should go back to being more available. The question is whether you're willing to start being more intentional with your energy. Because once you begin to do that, something else starts to happen. You begin to see things more clearly as you start becoming more aware of your energy and less reactive in general. You may notice something unexpected. Clarity. At first, it doesn't feel like clarity. It feels like distance, like you're stepping back from things that used to feel normal. But in that space, you begin to see patterns you couldn't see before. You start noticing who only reaches out when they need something, who expects immediate responses from you, who becomes uncomfortable when you don't react the way you used to, and more importantly, you start noticing your own patterns, how quickly you used to respond without thinking, how often you felt responsible for other people's emotions, how easily you got pulled into situations that drained you. This awareness can be uncomfortable, because once you see it, you can't unsee it, and it forces you to make choices. You begin to realize that not everything deserves your time. Not every message needs a reply. Not every situation needs your involvement. And that changes how you show up. You become more selective. You pause before responding. You take longer to engage. You allow silence where you used to fill space. And naturally, this changes how others respond to you. Some people will respect it, others won't. Some may adjust and meet you where you are. Others may push back, question you, or try to pull you into old patterns. This is where things can feel difficult, because setting boundaries, especially if you're not used to it, often comes with discomfort. You might feel guilty. You might worry about losing people. You might question whether you're doing the right thing. But here's the important part. What you're losing isn't necessarily connection, it's access. And there's a difference. People who were connected to you will still find ways to connect. People who were only benefiting from your availability will struggle with your absence. And that distinction becomes clearer over time. As you continue to protect your energy, something else begins to happen internally. You start to feel more stable, less reactive, less overwhelmed, less pulled in different directions. You begin to experience moments of calm that weren't there before. Moments where you're not thinking about what you need to respond to, not worrying about what someone expects from you, not feeling like you have to be on all the time. And in those moments, you reconnect with yourself. Not the version of you that's constantly adapting, but the version that exists without pressure. That's where things start to rebuild. Your energy becomes more consistent. Your attention becomes more focused. Your decisions become more intentional. And instead of reacting to life, you start choosing how you engage with it. This doesn't mean you become distant or disconnected. It means you become selective. You start deciding what actually deserves your time, your energy, your presence. And that changes everything. Because once you realize that your energy is limited and valuable, you stop giving it away automatically. You start protecting it. And in doing so, you create a different kind of life. One where you're not constantly drained, not constantly reacting, not constantly trying to keep up with everything around you, but instead moving at a pace that actually supports you. And that's the shift. Not becoming less of a person, but becoming more aware of where you place yourself. And once that awareness is there, you don't go back to how things were, because now you understand what it was costing you.